Joining the discussion now, Joy Reid, MSNBC national correspondent and the host of AM Joy, weekends here on MSNBC. And also with us, Jennifer Rubin, conservative opinion writer for The Washington Post and an MSNBC contributor, and David Frum, senior editor for The Atlantic and the author of Trumpocracy, The Corruption of the American Republic. And so, Joy, there is this widely made observation that if you get near Donald Trump, if you allow Donald Trump to have anything to do with your future is destroyed. And there we see the end of Paul Ryan's congressional career.
Yeah, Rick Wilson puts it, everything Trump touches dies. I think that's his sort of all-purpose thing for Donald Trump. Look, the reality is that I think you laid it out perfectly there, Lawrence, because Paul Ryan has been the ultimate triumph of form over substance. The Beltway media adored Paul Ryan, even though, you know, at least 8 years ago, Paul Krugman called him the flim-flam man. His numbers never add up. He has all these Ayn Randian ideas about ending the social safety net. He thinks it's some sort of moral hazard to help the poor. He wants to end food stamps. He wants to privatize Medicare, I guess get rid of Medicaid, privatize part of Social Security. He has all these ideas that are incredibly unpopular with the American people, but that have been very popular with both political journalists and Republicans, elected Republicans. They saw him as sort of a savior who could decouple the average American's devotion to the New Deal and the Great Society. This has been the great project of Republicans, at least on the economic front, is to somehow get people to break from this devotion to these New Deal era programs. Paul Ryan is seen as this young wunderkind who can make that happen, who can sell a sort of chic new Alex P. Keaton version of the American life where people would just break from it and realize those things should go away, or they should at least be sharply curtailed. He never really knew how to do that. He was never actually a skilled speaker. And when it came to Donald Trump, he essentially behaved with nothing. I can't describe it with any other word other than cowardice. He wanted what he wanted so badly, his tax cuts for the rich, his tax cuts for corporations, that he was willing to let Donald Trump do anything. And he forgot that he's fourth in line to the presidency. He runs a co-equal branch of government. People who've been speaker have immense power and wield it. He always seemed like he was Donald Trump's kid brother who didn't know how to stand up to him in a fight.
Jennifer Rubin, explain the Republicans in the House of Representatives to me, please. Let me tell you what I mean. When I worked in the Senate on the Democratic side, all of the Democratic chairmen relished their power. They relished their power over the president. The president wanted something in their committee. They always made the president bend the knee a little bit. They also relished their power over each other, and they fought for their jurisdictions and so forth. And so was the case with Democratic speakers of the House, Democratic Senate majority leaders, all of that. And so when I watched Paul Ryan operate as speaker, I've just been amazed that he seems to have not for one moment considered using his powers over the president, and instead just serve the president.
Exactly. I think he, first of all, made a calculation that turned out to be horribly wrong. And that was that he would get what he wanted while he was supporting an unfit, erratic, completely, frankly, unqualified president. That Donald Trump would have enough discipline, would have enough sense of responsibility that he would help Paul Ryan get what Paul Ryan wanted. And that was ridiculous because, of course, Donald Trump is so unfit and so erratic that he can't really see any policy initiatives through. But the second part, I think, more seriously, is this issue. You know, Joy was saying that his big dream was to decouple the American people from the New Deal. One of his other great projects was to recapture power for the Congress. As bizarre as that sounds, yes, he made all kinds of white papers and announcements about taking back power from the executive branch, which had been delegated out by Congress. Congress had not stepped up to the plate, had its responsibilities. And what did he do? He essentially assigned his entire job over to the White House. And that, if anything else, I think will be the long-term legacy of someone who came with the idea that there was an imbalance in our system. Presidents were too powerful. The People's House was the most responsible, the most democratic of our branches of government. And he frittered it away. And that is the great tragedy of Paul Ryan. And I think that, plus, of course, the enormous debt, is what he's going to be known for. And I think he leaves with not even apparently the guts to do some important things on the way out the door. He's not even running for re-election. Why doesn't he get rid of Devin Nunes now? Wouldn't that be fabulous? But he's too afraid even to do that. So he leaves, I think, disrespected by people who used to respect him. And frankly, with fair amount of contempt by Democrats.
David Frum, with Republican senators who have announced, like Jeff Flake, that they're not going to run for re-election, they seem free to say things that they otherwise would not. Is there any chance of that with Paul Ryan now?
Well, but why should he? I mean, you said early on that Donald Trump has destroyed Paul Ryan, and of course, there's a lot of truth to that. It's also true that Paul Ryan has destroyed Donald Trump. Imagine if Donald Trump had, as the 2017 version of Donald Trump, had been the same as the 2015 version. And he had joined to his nationalist program on trade and immigration, the big infrastructure program. He had sustained the social safety net, as he said he would. He had opposed upper income tax cuts, all of which were not only demanded by the country as a whole, but by actually most Republican primary voters. Donald Trump would today be, in my opinion, I think, a much more popular, maybe more dangerous president than he is. Instead, Donald Trump signed on to the Ryan program. He signed on to this massively unpopular tax cut. Pretty hard to be unpopular while cutting taxes, but that's happened. He signed on to the attempts to spend the first half of his most powerful year in office attempting to repeal Obamacare. It's a funny thing to think about, but Steve Bannon's political instincts may have been sharper than Paul Ryan's, and that it may be that if the Trump ship goes down, Paul Ryan will be the person to put a hole in the bottom of it.
Jerry Reed, a Republican source, said today on Axios, this is going to make every Republican donor believe the House can't be held.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, for a Speaker of the House to make himself a lame duck with this much time left in the year, and then for, Mitch McConnell said we have much to do. No, you have nothing to do. You are a lame duck. You have nothing more to do. And if you think about the fact that not only is he abandoning ship, he's abandoning his seat. Right now, the only real challenger for his seat is an avowed white nationalist named Paul Nehlen, who he would, presumably want to do something about, but he's not even doing anything about that. He's probably also lost the 1st district in Wisconsin to the Democrats, meaning Democrats don't need 23 seats, they need 22. Thanks to the current Republican Speaker of the House. I mean, I think that, there's nothing more, I think it's cowardly for any of them that say Donald Trump is terrible, I'm leaving. I'm leaving instead of fighting him. Paul Ryan has essentially said Donald Trump is wonderful, and I'm leaving. And he has signaled to every Republican donor, we are definitely losing the House.
As I said in December, Paul Ryan needed to get out now so that he could be cleansed of the Trump stink. And in his mid-50s, in 2024, he can come back after the age of Trump and run for president, not having been associated with the final years of Trump. We're going to have to squeeze in a break here. Everyone's going to stay in place.